boots are these?" The drill sergeant's voice cut through the barracks like a rifle shot. 30 recruits stood frozen, but everyone knew who he meant. The scuffed pair at the end of the line, the ones that looked older than their owner, belonged to Private Ethan Cole. A ripple of laughter broke the silence, sharp and cruel. One of the louder recruits, Daniels, leaned just enough for everyone to hear him whisper, "Guess Goodwill's running a sale for soldiers now." More laughter followed. Ethan kept his eyes locked forward, jaw tight, the taste of shame heavy in his mouth. That was my first day at Fort Ironclad, and I knew right then the mountain I'd have to climb was higher than most. Not because I was weaker, not because I didn't belong, but because everything about me looked like I didn't. The humiliation didn't stop at inspection. At chow, when trays slammed onto metal tables and voices filled the hall, I sat alone. Daniel strutted past with his perfect uniform and polished helmet, loud enough for a whole section to hear. "Some men are born soldiers. Some just get lost on the way to college and end up here." His buddies laughed, pounding the table like it was a bar instead of a mess hall. I gripped my fork, fighting the urge to snap back. But words wouldn't change a thing. In this place, weakness was remembered. Silence could survive. That silence became my shield. But every insult still burned. In the barracks, recruits swapped stories of home, of girlfriends, of football victories. When they looked at me, their smirks said it all. Ethan Cole wasn't one of them. My hand-me-down duffel bag, my faint southern drawl, the way I hesitated before speaking, it all marked me as different. And in the Army, different was easy prey. Daniels especially loved making a show of it. During rifle assembly, he looked over and called out, "Hey, Cole, try not to drop the barrel this time. Wouldn't want you to shoot yourself before we get to war." Even the drill sergeant chuckled under his breath, and that stung worse than anything. When authority laughed with them, it told everyone else they had permission. Still, not every pair of eyes mocked me. Corporal Johnson, a combat vet with scars he never explained, kept his distance but watched me closer than the rest. He never said a word in my defense. He knew better than that. But sometimes when Daniels was loudest, I caught Johnson's gaze. Not pity, something else. Like he was waiting to see if I'd break, or if I'd rise. That tension ate at me night after night. The barracks smelled of polish and sweat, boots lined straight by the bunks, rifles racked like sacred objects. Recruits whispered jokes until lights out. I laid there staring at the ceiling, my father's words echoing in my head. "Discipline wins battles no one sees." I whispered it to myself so quiet no one else could hear. That was how I survived. The ridicule, one whispered reminder at a time. The next morning, punishment drills came fast. The rain poured down like a wall, soaking through uniforms, making boots heavy with mud. Daniels was laughing again, even while gasping for air. "Come on, Cole," he barked between breaths. "Try not to drown in a puddle." My lungs burned. My legs begged me to quit, but I didn't. I ran until the whistle blew, and when everyone else staggered back to cover, I kept running one more lap. Nobody cheered. Nobody even noticed, except maybe Johnson. He was there, arms crossed, rain dripping down his cap. His eyes lingered just a second longer than usual. Later, Daniels pushed it further. During afternoon inspection, he accidentally knocked over my bunk locker. My neatly folded uniform spilled across the floor. "Oops," he grinned. "Guess discipline isn't your strong suit." Laughter again. I bent down, folded each piece back into place without saying a word. My hands shook, but my face didn't show it. I could feel Johnson's eyes again from across the room. That was enough to keep me steady. That night, as the barracks lights dimmed and snores filled the air, I pulled out a battered notebook from my duffel. The pages were filled with my scribbles, old lessons, diagrams, notes from field manuals I'd studied since high school. Knowledge I clung to because one day it might matter. I traced a line of ink I'd written weeks earlier. "When no one believes in you, you prepare anyway." I thought that was the end of the day's battles, but just before lights out, Daniels walked past my bunk, smirking. "Don't worry, Cole. You'll be gone by next month. Some of us are cut out for this. Some of us just aren't." His words lingered like smoke in the room long after he'd gone. What I never expected was how fast things could change, and how soon every man in that barracks would see me differently. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapters of this journey. The rain never stopped that week. It came down in sheets, thick and heavy, soaking every inch of Fort Ironclad. Most recruits cursed under their breath as they slogged through drills, but for me the rain was a strange kind of blessing. It hid the sweat running down my face, and it drowned out the laughter when I stumbled. During one of those endless runs, boots sinking in the mud, Daniels jogged up just close enough to make sure. His words cut through. "Keep up, Cole, or do we need to get you a life jacket?" His buddies roared even while gasping for air. I clenched my jaw, legs burning, and kept moving. No answer. Just one more step, and then another. By the time the whistle blew, most recruits collapsed under the awning. I kept running. One more lap. I don't know why I did it. Maybe to prove something to myself. Maybe to drown out Daniel's voice in my head. Johnson stood at the edge, arms crossed, rain dripping off his cap. He didn't say a word, but I saw him watching. He saw me. That night in the barracks, the air reeked of wet socks and disinfectant. Boots were lined under every bunk, uniforms hanging stiff from the rain. Daniels walked past my bed with that same smirk, spotting my old notebook sticking out of my duffel. He pulled it out, flipped through the pages, then held it up like it was a joke. "What's this? Cole writing love poems? Or maybe a how-to guide on quitting the army?" The others chuckled. I reached out, calm but firm, and took it back without a word. My hands were shaking, but I forced my face to stay stone. Daniels laughed harder, like silence meant victory. Across the room, I caught Morales looking at me from his bunk. He didn't laugh. He didn't smile. Just watched. Later, after lights out, when the room went quiet, I found a protein bar sitting on my pillow. No note, just the bar. I knew it was Morales. Small, silent kindness. The next morning, the obstacle course turned into another show. Mud clung to every surface. Walls slick, ropes heavy. Daniels made sure everyone noticed when I slipped off the rope climb. "Careful, Cole. Don't drown in the mud before chow." His voice carried, and the group laughed like a pack of wolves. I dragged myself out, spit out the dirt, and started again. I fell twice more, each time greeted by Daniel's voice echoing behind me. But when the day ended and everyone else marched back to the barracks, I stayed, alone in the rain, climbing, falling, climbing again. By the time I finished that course, my arms trembled, my knees bled, and no one was there to see it. No one except Johnson, who stood in the distance, arms folded like before. He didn't say anything, but he didn't leave either. In the chow hall, Daniels turned every meal into theater. He accidentally knocked my tray out of my hands once. The beans, the cornbread, the meatloaf, everything splattered across the floor. The hall went quiet for a second. Then, laughter broke out. Daniels leaned close. "Pick it up, Cole. Might be the only hot meal you get today." I bent down, cleaned it up, got back in line, and grabbed another tray. No words, no anger. Just quiet. Inside, though, my chest burned like fire. Nights were the hardest. Lying in that bunk, listening to the snores, the whispers, the jokes being passed down the row. I kept my notebook under the blanket, light dim, writing notes from memory. Old manuals, things my father had taught me before he passed. Tricks for when the equipment failed. Methods no one else thought about anymore. "Prepare for the fight you can't see," he used to tell me. I held on to that. One evening, after another brutal drill, Daniels wasn't done. He wanted to put me on display again. He gathered a few recruits around and started mocking the way I ran, exaggerating the stumble, the gasping for air. They howled. Then he walked up to me, close enough to feel his breath. "You don't belong here, Cole, and everyone knows it." The room was silent except for his words. I didn't move, didn't speak. He pushed harder. "Say something. Go on. Prove me wrong." My fist clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. I thought I'd explode. But then I heard Johnson's boots in the doorway. He didn't step in, just stood there watching. That was enough. I let go, sat down, opened my notebook, and wrote. Daniel spat a curse and stormed off, but the silence that followed felt heavier than his words. Days bled into nights, and the weight of it all started pressing down on me. But every insult became fuel. Every laugh became another lap on the track. Every tray on the floor became another line in the notebook. They thought they were breaking me. They didn't realize they were forging me. And then came the moment none of us expected. Late in the week, a surprise inspection. Drill Sergeant Ramirez stormed into the barracks, voice booming. "On your feet! Lockers open! Boots out!" We scrambled. Daniel smirked, sure this was my end. He whispered, "This is it, Cole. Watch and learn." Ramirez walked the line, barking at every recruit, tossing uniforms, demanding precision. When he got to me, he yanked open my locker. Everyone leaned in, waiting for the disaster. But inside, my gear was folded to regulation. My rifle spotless. My boots, though old, polished to a mirror shine. Ramirez froze, then nodded. Just once. "Not bad, Cole." The room went silent. Daniel's face dropped, all color draining. He had expected me to fail. Instead, in front of everyone, the drill sergeant had given me the one thing I'd been denied from day one. Respect. It was a small thing, a single nod. But in that moment, it felt like thunder shaking the walls. Daniels didn't laugh after that inspection. Not that night. Not the next morning. The others didn't know what to say either. They weren't my friends, not yet. But something shifted. The mockery lost its edge. The silence carried a different weight. That was the week I realized something important. Sometimes the hardest fight isn't against the enemy in front of you. It's against the voices around you, the ones trying to bury you before you've even begun. But if you hold steady, if you endure, the day will come when even your harshest critic runs out of words. What I didn't know then was that everything I endured in that week was preparing me for the real test. The one that would shake the entire unit and change everything forever. It was a Thursday morning when everything came apart. The air at Fort Ironclad was heavy, thick with the smell of wet dirt and diesel. We'd been told there would be a full combat simulation. Squad formations, live blanks, smoke grenades, vehicles, and timed objectives. The kind of exercise meant to separate the strong from the weak. Daniel strutted like a rooster before it started, helmet under his arm, voice loud enough for the entire squad to hear. "Cole, just stay out of the way. Last thing we need is you tripping over yourself while the rest of us finish the job." The other recruits chuckled, nodding along. I stayed quiet like always, but inside I felt that same fire building. I'd been through their jokes 100 times. This time, though, something told me it wouldn't end the same way. The simulation kicked off with sirens. We sprinted through mud, rifles tight to our chests, smoke filling the air until vision blurred. Orders came fast and sharp. Cover fire, move, reload, advance. Daniel shouted commands like he owned the place, even though he wasn't in charge. "Move, move, move! Keep up, Cole!" He barked, pushing me toward the back. I obeyed, but I kept scanning. My eyes caught details others ignored. The Humvee parked off to the side. The way the comms crackled faintly. The wires strung across the mock village. I noted it all quietly while Daniels tried to look like a hero. Halfway through the drill, chaos hit. Smoke canisters thickened, turning the world into a gray wall. Gunfire blanks snapped from every direction. Our radios cut out in a burst of static. The squad froze. Daniels looked around, panic flashing in his eyes for the first time. He screamed into his dead headset, "Command! Come in! Command!" Nothing. His confidence evaporated. Then came the worst of it, a mechanical crack, followed by shouting. One of the Humvees had stalled, smoke pouring out of its hood. In the confusion, Daniels ran to climb inside, but a smoke charge went off nearby. The blast rocked the vehicle, jamming the hatch as he scrambled half in, half out. He was stuck. The squad scattered, coughing, disoriented. Daniels pounded on the hatch, his voice breaking. "I'm trapped. Somebody, get me out." None of the others moved. They were too busy trying to regroup. Fear had stripped away their bravado. For a moment, I just stood there, heart hammering in my chest. Then I saw the problem. An old latch mechanism jammed in place. Something I'd read about in my notebook weeks before. My father had explained it to me years back, how to bypass it if the hydraulics locked. I remembered every word. I pushed through the smoke, grabbed the side of the Humvee and shouted, Hold still! Daniels twisted, wild-eyed, as if he couldn't believe it was me standing there. Cole, get away! You'll just screw it up, he snapped, but his voice cracked with fear. I ignored him. I yanked the emergency lever, jammed my boot against the frame, and used every ounce of strength I had to pry the hatch. It didn't budge. Daniel screamed again, louder this time. Hurry! It's gonna blow! My arms trembled. For a second, I thought I'd fail. Then I remembered all those nights alone in the rain, repeating drills when no one was watching. All those moments when laughter crushed me, but I kept moving anyway. I pushed harder. Metal groaned, sparks flying from the strain. Finally, with a deafening snap, the hatch gave way. Daniels tumbled out, gasping, face pale with terror. The squad stood frozen. Nobody spoke. For the first time, the one who mocked me the most was lying in the mud, alive because of me. Daniels looked up at me, eyes wide, chest heaving. How the hell did you? He whispered. I didn't answer. I just reached down, pulled him to his feet, and shoved him toward the others. Stay with the squad, I said flatly. My voice didn't sound like mine anymore. It sounded stronger, steadier. We regrouped. Smoke still burned our lungs, gunfire still cracked around us, but something shifted. Daniels, usually the loudest, stayed silent. The others glanced at me with a different kind of look. Not ridicule, not pity. Something else. Something like respect. I didn't ask for it. I hadn't even thought about it. But it was there. Then came the climax. We had one last objective, to breach a mock building and secure it. With radios down, orders unclear, the squad hesitated. Daniels opened his mouth, but no words came. He just shook his head. The silence was suffocating. That's when Johnson's voice cut through from the edge of the field. He wasn't supposed to interfere, but he did. Just 3 words, sharp and cold. Lead them, Cole. Every head turned toward me. My stomach knotted. For a moment I wanted to shrink back, let someone else take it. But then I saw Daniels, still trembling, his eyes begging me to do what he couldn't. I swallowed hard, raised my hand and said, Follow me. We stormed the mock building together, tight formation, clearing rooms like we'd been taught. My voice carried the commands, short, firm, steady. Left clear, stack right, move. The squad obeyed. No hesitation, no laughter. When the last room was secured, the siren ended the simulation. Silence followed, broken only by heavy breathing and the distant hiss of smoke fading. Back at the line, Drill Sergeant Ramirez paced in front of us, face unreadable. Then he stopped, turned to Daniels. Private Daniels, you froze. You risked the squad. Daniels' face flushed crimson, his mouth opening and closing without a sound. Ramirez turned to me. Private Cole, you took control. You saved a man. You led. His eyes narrowed, voice dropping to a growl. That's what a soldier does. The squad shifted uneasily, realizing what had just happened. The power had flipped. The kid they mocked, the one they thought didn't belong, had just done what none of them could. Daniels avoided my eyes. Morales, quiet as ever, gave me the faintest nod from across the line. That night in the barracks, the air was different. No jokes, no laughter at my expense. Daniel sat on his bunk, silent, staring at the floor. The others whispered, but not about me this time. I lay on my bed, notebook in hand, writing one sentence over and over. Respect is earned in fire. I didn't sleep much. My arms still ached from the hatch. My lungs still burned from the smoke. But inside something had changed. I wasn't the weak recruit anymore. I wasn't the punchline. I was the one who had stepped up when everything fell apart. And from that moment on, no one could take that away from me. The barracks felt different after the simulation. The air was heavy with an awkward silence, the kind that made every word feel like it would echo too loud. Daniels didn't strut anymore. He kept to his bunk, polishing his rifle until the metal gleamed, never looking up. The other recruits who used to laugh at his jokes about me now watched him with sidelong glances, unsure where to stand. It was like the ground had shifted under all of us. But silence isn't peace. It's just pressure waiting to break. At chow the next morning, Daniels tried to recover some of his pride. He sat across from me, jaw tight, eyes burning. "Don't think saving me makes you special," he muttered, just loud enough for the others to hear. A couple of recruits leaned in, waiting for sparks. I met his stare, calm. "You're alive, aren't you?" I said. He slammed his tray so hard peas flew across the table. The whole hall went quiet. Ramirez's boots clicked on the tile, and with one sharp glare, the noise of the room returned like nothing had happened. Daniel shrank back, face red. The others shook their heads, whispering. Sympathy had started leaning my way. Later that afternoon, formation was called on the parade ground. Ramirez had a folder in his hand, thick with papers. His voice was clipped, sharp as a blade. "Recruits, listen up. Today we talk about performance. Who folds under pressure? Who steps up?" My chest tightened. I knew where this was going, but I didn't know how public it would be. He called Daniels forward first. The poor guy looked like he was walking to a firing squad. Ramirez circled him like a hawk. "Private Daniels, in combat simulation, you froze. You endangered the unit. You nearly cost a man his life." Daniels' face was pale, his mouth opening, then shutting. "No excuse, drill sergeant," he stammered. Ramirez leaned in. "Damn right there's no excuse." He dismissed him with a wave, turning him back to the line. Daniel's eyes flicked to me, full of anger and shame all at once. Then Ramirez stopped in front of me. He opened the folder. His voice lowered, deliberate, like each word weighed 10 pounds. "Private Ethan Cole, some of you think you know this man. Some of you think he's weak or unfit or doesn't belong. That's because you don't know his file. You don't know his bloodline." The recruits stirred, curious. Ramirez continued. "Cole's father, Master Sergeant Robert Cole. Iraq, 2006. Improvised under fire when his unit was pinned. Repaired a disabled Humvee with nothing but wire and grit. Saved 6 men. Awarded the Silver Star." The squad went still. Even the wind seemed to hush. Daniel's mouth fell open. Morales looked at me like he'd just pieced together a puzzle. Ramirez closed the folder with a snap. "Seems grit runs in the family. And last week we saw it again. Private Cole did what others could not. He adapted. He led. He saved one of your own." For a moment no one breathed. The shame was written on every face. All those nights of laughter, every tray knocked from my hands, every insult about my boots, it all sat heavy on them now. They realized what they had done. Daniels broke the silence, voice trembling with bitterness. "You think he's a hero because of his daddy? That doesn't mean he belongs here." The words cracked as they left him, like even he didn't believe them. Ramirez snapped around so fast it made him flinch. "Quiet, Daniels. We saw who froze and who didn't. Don't confuse pedigree with performance. Cole earned his respect." That was the climax, the reversal no one could argue with. The drill sergeant himself had said it plain. When we were dismissed, the squad moved slow, like their boots were heavier than usual. Morales caught up with me at the edge of the field. He didn't say much, just handed me a canteen, nodded once, and walked off. But that nod meant more than 1,000 words. It was the first open sign that someone stood with me. Back in the barracks, Daniel sat on his bunk, shoulders slumped. For the first time, he didn't glare. He didn't speak. He just kept his eyes on the floor. Later that night, when the lights were dimmed, I found something strange on my bunk. A pair of boots, polished so sharp they shined in the dark. My name tag tucked inside. I looked over and Daniels was already lying down, facing the wall. He didn't say a word, but I knew it was him. That was the moment the scales balanced. Not perfectly, not with apologies or handshakes, but with silence that carried respect instead of ridicule. The same silence I had lived with since the beginning, only now it belonged to them. I lay back on my bunk, staring at the ceiling, the faint hum of the bass filling the night. For the first time, I felt the weight lift from my chest. I wasn't just surviving Fort Ironclad anymore. I was standing in it, and I knew deep down the real battles weren't behind me yet. They were coming, but this time I wouldn't face them as the weak one. I'd face them as a soldier. The last week at Fort Ironclad felt like another world compared to the first. The jeers were gone, the smirks, the jokes in the chow hall, the whispers in the barracks. All of it had dried up. In their place was something heavier, respect, maybe even guilt. Recruits who once laughed when I stumbled now moved aside in the chow line, silent. Morales sat openly next to me now. No need for secret protein bars left on my pillow. Even Daniels, who'd lived to humiliate me, kept his distance, polishing his rifle in silence. But silence never lasts. It always gives way to a reckoning. One evening, after a grueling set of drills, Ramirez called the company together on the parade ground. The flag was being lowered, the last light of the sun catching the fabric as it fell. We stood in formation, boots lined sharp against the concrete. Ramirez paced in front, eyes sharp. "You've been tested," he said. "Some of you folded. Some of you rose. The Army doesn't care where you came from. It cares what you do when the fire hits." His gaze landed on me, heavy and unblinking. "And sometimes the soldier you all thought was the weakest turns out to be the one carrying you." A ripple went through the formation. No laughter this time, just stillness. Daniel's face tightened, jaw clenching like he wanted to argue, but he said nothing. Ramirez let the silence hang, then snapped, "Dismissed!" Boots thundered as the formation broke. Back in the barracks, I found something I hadn't expected. Daniel's boots, polished to perfection, sitting at the edge of my bunk. My name stitched inside. I froze. For a moment, I thought it was a mistake. But then I saw Daniels lying on his bunk, back turned, eyes fixed on the wall. He didn't say a word. Didn't need to. That gesture said more than any apology ever could. Outrage had burned out of him. Shame had taken its place. The real climax came 2 days later. During morning inspection, Ramirez stopped in front of me. He didn't bark, he didn't curse, he simply nodded. Then in front of the whole platoon, he raised his hand in a salute. Not the regulation kind, not the stiff, formal motion we all drilled into muscle memory, but slower, deeper. The kind of salute soldiers give each other on battlefields, the kind that says, "You've earned this." The entire barracks went still. No one moved, no one spoke. Even Daniels lowered his head. That moment felt like thunder rolling through the air, silencing every insult, every jeer, every ounce of doubt that had been piled on me since day one. Later that night, the barracks hummed with the usual noises, boots being polished, low whispers, the creak of bunks. But when I looked around, the eyes that once mocked me now carried something else. Respect. Some couldn't meet my gaze. Others did. And when they did, they held it just long enough to say the words they couldn't speak out loud. I pulled out my battered notebook, the one they had mocked, and wrote one final line under all the scribbles and diagrams. "Honor isn't given, it's earned in silence, proven in fire." I closed it, slid it under my pillow, and lay back. For the first time, the weight on my chest was gone. I wasn't just the recruit with old boots anymore. I wasn't the outcast. I was Private Ethan Cole, a soldier, standing on equal ground with the rest. And as taps played faintly across the base, I thought of my father's words. Discipline wins battles no one sees. He was right. This was the proof. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapters of this journey. The final image I want you to hold is this: a young soldier standing alone beneath the flagpole at Fort Ironclad. His boots are scuffed, his uniform still plain, but his shoulders are square and steady. The flag snaps in the wind above him, its shadow stretching across the parade ground. Around him, men who once mocked him now stand in silence. No jokes, no jeers, just quiet acknowledgement. And from the corner, the drill sergeant, once the harshest voice of all, gives a single respectful nod. No words, no ceremony, just that nod. That's the moment that stays with you, because it tells the truth every soldier knows deep down. Respect isn't given, it's earned, and it's earned in silence, in sweat, in fire. This story is more than one recruit's fight. It's about what happens when prejudice blinds us, when we mistake humility for weakness, when we let pride keep us from seeing the value in the man beside us. Ethan Cole didn't win by shouting louder or pushing harder. He won by holding his ground, by refusing to break, by letting his actions speak when words would have been wasted. And in the end, the ones who mocked him were the ones forced to change. There's an old saying, actions speak louder than words. Another, you reap what you sow. Both are true here. The seeds of arrogance will always wither. The seeds of discipline, patience, and honor, they grow into something unshakable. So I ask you, what part of Ethan's story hit you the hardest? Was it the injustice he faced, or the quiet strength he carried through it all? Share your thoughts in the comments. If this story struck a chord, give it a like. It helps more people hear it. And if you want more stories of resilience, brotherhood, and honor, subscribe and stay with us. Until next time, stand tall, hold fast, and remember, you are never alone in the fight.